Welcome to the Meydan Friesen podcast, where we explore the stories and innovations that are shaping Dubai's landscape. Today, we have the pleasure of having Suraj Gopal, the head of partnerships and commercial at CredibleX, a company that is pioneering embedded finance solutions for SMEs and different companies across the country. Welcome, Suraj. It's so lovely to have you here.
My pleasure, Maria. Thank you for inviting me for the podcast.
Today, I wanted to get started with, for our audience that might not be aware of CredibleX and its incredible offerings, can you tell us a bit about not only what it does, but who you're trying to service to and the problems you're trying to solve?
To give you an introduction of CredibleX, we are a fully regulated enterprise. We are under the ownership of Further Venture Studios, which is a venture studio based out of Abu Dhabi. What we are trying to solve here is we are trying to support SMEs in their growth journey, provide them with working capital, cash flow solutions, during the various needs of their time as they grow their business to the next levels.
And like you said, for example, a lot of people say that SMEs are the backbone of any economy, but a big hurdle that a lot of them end up experiencing, especially at the initial phases, is lack of funding or financing. Maybe they have large capital constraints and they can't find venture capitalists or support mechanisms, things like that. How does CredibleX come and solve these challenges for them?
Presently, there are more than 550,000 SMEs operating in UAE, and the aim is to reach about 1 million by 2030. Most of the issues that SMEs face are sometimes also equally faced by the traditional banking system that is available, right? Mm-hmm. Both of them have their own respective issues. For traditional banks or for the banks or any institution to do proper creditworthiness check on an SME, data points are important. Definitely the government provided data points like Al Ittihad Credit Bureau or the other reports have started from 2014, which is pretty impressive in terms of the timeline they have built up these consolidated data points. But where these institutions could vary a bit, and that's where CredibleX comes into play, is we operate more on a digital platform that aggregates data points or takes data points from these aggregators who have it available. Thereby, we integrate into our system. So apart from what the SME customer has available data points, we also get data points from their ecosystems, which helps us provide a more accurate creditworthiness check and help them out in terms of their needs. From an SME's point of view, they also need to ensure that they have, at their various stages of growth journey, be more accurate on their accounts, more accurate on their bank statements, which are the ultimate data points that leads to a much valid credit assessment.
Companies sometimes, especially in the initial phases, might not be privy to all the transactions or all the information that is going behind the scenes from a monetary perspective. And a simple, lack of recording a transaction or getting all these data points might be the cause of a bank not giving you a certain loan or might not approve you for a certain loan, of course. So with that being said, something that I really want you to highlight for our audience is what is embedded finance, because I think CredibleX's solution that is a game changer, especially with the whole digitalization that CredibleX emphasizes, is the embedded finance solutions for SMEs. Can you tell us more about how that works?
Embedded finance is providing financial services or integrating financial services to financial services platform, applications or business models. Now, a very good example for which we are sitting together is, again, Meydan. Meydan provides some of the best services where a business can start, operate, and run their businesses. And where we involve is we take the power to the consumers, which is the businesses, instead of the way traditional banks required them to approach them. We seamlessly integrate with Meydan services in a way that the SMEs within Meydan's ecosystem is able to see it as a one-stop solution. See it seamlessly flowing from their regular services to also availing funding. Now, as a digital platform and with the ability to extract data points from multiple sources, we would be able to provide the SMEs with an option to apply right from their own office, which is much faster. Yeah. The information is more consistent on both directions, and they have a visibility in terms of when and how much funds they can avail.
And I would assume there's a level of real-time reporting or analytics when it comes to those situations as well.
Surely. I believe the technology advancements has moved where all industries are now using technology. And what it enables financial services to do is also very similar. where these technology advancements enable us to seamlessly integrate with multiple data sources, extract it without bothering the client too much, whereas do the proper credit assessment whereby we can balance our risk and the customer can get the level of funding that they're looking for at various stages. For an institution, it makes more sense if the unit economics works. And for an SME, because they are champions, they are driving their own businesses with minimal resources, right? Yeah. They would want to focus on that to make it better.
That's why I think as well the partnership between CredibleX and Meydan is so great, because both of them not only emphasize the importance of digitalization and the seamlessness of operations, trying to get companies' operations ready, at least is one of the mottos of Meydan. But I think at the end of the day, it also is about and sorting out all the basic or all the basal services that any company would need from its license, from, maybe some of them require certain regulations and approvals, things like that. But then that next phase to get them operations ready. Because if you don't have that flat rate from, let's say, the HR or your financing solutions, counting internally, if you don't have your license, then you can't focus on the next step and focus on what you're actually good at. If the base of the company is not solved, or at least settled, and all the requirements haven't been completed for any business, then you end up wasting time and resources trying to get XYZ aligned before you can even sell your service or sell your product, work with your clients, see what they actually need, improve your service. You end up wasting all this time on all the administrative and managerial side of it, which at the end of the day is not what we want the clients to do.
Agreed and understood on that.
One of the things I think any SME also has to consider is cash flow and any cash flow constraints beyond, specifically financing. You guys have services such as receivable funding and insurance premium funding. Can you explain to me, because personally I have no clue what that is, can you please tell me how that works and why, if I wanted to start a business or anyone that's opened a business with Meydan, it would be interesting or at least important for them to know about this?
To elaborate on the bouquet of services that we offer to our clients presently, we look at the journey of the clients, basically the SMEs, and they have requirements at various stages. It could vary from buying stocks, which is from a supplier where they have to make a payment, or when they have done a service to get a payment from the paymaster, which is on a credit term, or which is a very prominent line of activity in Meydan, e-commerce segment, where these businesses are thriving given the current marketplace logics that are working very well. So we do look at these different requirements of SMEs. And unfortunately, depending on the size of the SME, they normally approach for this requirement at the penultimate moment. And this is where both our speed and the bouquet of offerings that we give could use helpful for customers operating in these segments with Meydan. To define receivable finance, let me give you a scenario. There is a service that a business A has rendered to MNC company or an institution, right? And they have to wait for 30, 45, 60, 90 days for getting the payment. Now, this is asset with value locked in it. We know this payment is going to come in. So what we do is we advance the invoice value, a particular percentage of it, to the client so that they can use that for their working capital requirement, their cash flows. And when the invoice matures for payment, it would be collected so that we can settle the account and they can move that on a revolving basis. Now, this defines the receivable finance logic because we are financing against the receivable that the client is supposed to get. On supplier finance, basically, as the word sounds, or payable financing, it's about paying the supplier in advance because most of the suppliers would appreciate getting the payment in advance and the client would get certain levels of discount or benefits based on that. We would support that and the client would pay us at some point in time. On the insurance side, we have certain partners who are well-known and reputable in the market. And what we would aim to do for them is we would be providing a certain financial services to their clients who are looking to buy insurance products from them. I would love to explain this with a scenario where you have an SME who is trying to buy stock, waiting for his or her payments to come in, has projects that could be serviced but does not have enough cash flow in hand, and suddenly has the rents and the insurance payments coming right at the doorstep. Now, you identify that this customer is actually good and can progress well, but needs some level of support, right? So insurance payments, if it is a bullet payment, that kind of takes away a lot of cash flow from the business. We provide that solution where we convert that into more digestible bits, where the customer is also comfortable paying it over a period of time, while securing the insurance that they required for their business or for their staff or for their resources. That's how we kind of currently navigate through that product.
And I think a highlight feature of Credible X's service offerings is the rapid loan approval process that you guys have. Living in Dubai and of course in the UAE, the country prioritizes, innovation, digitalization, and a level of futurism. Can you tell us how technology has enabled Credible X to issue rapid loans, and what does this mean for the future of SMEs that are, in desperate need maybe of financing or just considering this idea?
Surely. So I believe the technology side is a big boon if you look at it that way, right? Because technology breaks down your different processes into segments that can be automated well. So from a Credible X point of view, our embedded finance journey, embedded finance model enables end-to-end complete digitalization, which means from the point of application to the point of assessment, checks, getting back to the client, getting the contract signed off, and dispersing the funds. It's end-to-end digital. What that also enables us to do is turn or do a transaction much faster than the traditional way of how it was being done. A document being received is broken down, data points are extracted, reports, the business intelligence helps in creating the necessary reports for our credit and risk assessment teams to evaluate and ultimately find the right fitment of funding that would ensure the requirement of the business is met as a client. And from a risk assessment point of view, it does address the unit economics and the risk part of doing that business from a Credible X point of view.
And you mentioned earlier that when we talk about embedded finance, it's a level of integration, integrating that finance into the company and their model. Can you tell us how, when it comes to SMEs, how do you integrate things like, for example, a POS system, insurance providers, different things that B2B platforms might require, or companies might want to integrate it? Because for a person that might not be in this side of financing, I mean, I've been involved with a lot of SMEs and also with different entrepreneurs and startup ventures, but never from the financing side, always from a marketing and, from like a sales perspective. So this part for me is not as easy for me to understand. So for a person like me, in layman's terms, how do we actually integrate it into the model?
When the word integrate comes into play, you need to be aligned with partners who are providing that solution. From an example point of view, as you mentioned, the POS or point of sales, right? We have partnered with one of the largest POS providers in the region, which holds roughly 40% of the market share. We have seamlessly integrated with their platform, whereby it's a more deeper integration, which probably hopefully I'll come at a later stage in the different levels of integration. Yeah. But what that enables us to do is a seamless flow of a request from a client in that ecosystem, the POS provider's ecosystem. If they need funding and they want to look for funding options, the data points flows into our system, our platform. We are able to do our assessment completely digital, completely automated, and then come back with a solution of what level of funding we can provide, what are the basic conditions, covenants around it, terms-wise, within as fast as 24 to 48 hours.
That's really good.
That's a big game changer.
I mean, some banks won't even respond to you for months, and you guys can at least give them an answer or a level of support within 24 hours.
To believe that technological advancement in the financial services deemed as Industrial Revolution 4.0, this is definitely going to put everybody up on their seats to note. And I think many of the banks in the region have also realized of how they can symbiotically work with fintechs or have a fintech to their existing divisions, which is quite interesting to see, because in the earlier days, it was not clearly judged as to how both the segments would work together with each other. Yeah. But if you look at it, after years of that becoming more and more mature from a fintech space, there's a lot more collaboration that can happen. And it's a win-win for both.
And I mean, at the end of the day, when it comes to fintech as well, within the UAE, it's been increasingly demanded for by a lot of people. I know we have now agencies like VARA that are trying to, finalize certain regulations and look into the entire system of fintech, crypto, all of that stuff. So hopefully, in collaboration with things like how Credible X provides and also the banks, there is a level of innovation that becomes front leading to the world. I mean, we're already on that stage on so many different industries, but I think the second that more fintech and crypto is being developed into the system, whether it's through banks or financial service providers or solutions providers, it's going to be a game changer for a lot of people, especially for SMEs that come from countries where that is very actively used as a mode of transactions. And hopefully that will also give a trend for countries that maybe don't implement it. I mean, there's a lot of areas around the world where it's still not really practiced to be using crypto or different blockchain technologies as well. So I'm very excited to see that space and how it innovates and how Credible X ends up, assisting that trend towards more innovation in the finance side.
Absolutely.
So as you're aware, a lot of our Meydan client base falls within the startup and SME category. There are fully fledged companies that I know would also love to use Credible X's services. But from a startup and SME perspective, can you tell us how Credible X intends to address maybe the capital constraints or financial issues they may be experiencing, especially while they're trying to scale their production or scale their service delivery?
From an enterprise's point of view, there's always a balance between the level of debt and equity that the company can have, or as they move forward. Now, Credible X providing these solutions, working capital or cash flow solutions, is more of a debt funding, where there has to be a certain level of vintage or existence or operations that the company would have done. We would ideally expect between 1 to 2 cycles of revenue that the customers would have generated, the businesses would have generated, for us to evaluate that data points. Because again, the only way we can evaluate and provide a reasonable score or a reasonable funding to a business is based on their track record. Yeah. So we would definitely, as time evolve, I believe the UAE ecosystem will definitely have pockets where early startups, and there are existing pockets both from a private point of view and a government initiatives point of view to support. And as you said, I mean, companies that are operating even probably in more than 2 years are still finding it difficult to raise funds.
I mean, I've seen startups that have been running for 6-10 years and they still classify themselves as startups because they are experiencing many issues. An actual long-term ME might no longer be experiencing, or someone that's already like a bigger company.
Most of these enterprises in the early stages are very well bootstrapped. The founders and the co-founders know that they have to tread this path by themselves for the first 2 years to show a proof of concept and a wider scalability about it. I would say really the way different segments, AI, cybersecurity, given the whole digital ecosystem around it developing, it's just a matter of time that the other ecosystems that would support the startups would also emerge. But from a Credible X point of view, we are happy to partnering with ecosystem providers is also equally important. Yeah. Because you would have data points that are provided from a public domain or a dedicated portal from a government point of view. But there is a treasure of information which the partners also have in terms of the operations of that business within that ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And that would definitely add on in terms of credit assessment, in terms of the comfort levels, and give that window of opportunity which an SME didn't have earlier. Mm-hmm. And that's where you would see embedded finance playing a major role, which is integrating with the partners, providing that service to the ecosystem, whereas being comfortable because there are much more data points available for making the right decisions.
And I think also Credible X is incredibly supportive when it comes down to, assisting companies managing, certain burdens. It sounds terrible, but insurance sometimes can be a burden as much as a necessity. And things like insurance definitely comes up as an upfront cost. In the UAE, there's certain regulations that you have to follow because taking care of your employees is also as critical as running your operations and your services. And one of the key things you need is insurance for your company, insurance for whatever you have, whether it's large assets or your actual employees. How do you go about, as a company, helping these SMEs solve what they might consider their burdens? Because for someone, a burden might be this, and another person, it might be, that's the easiest part to solve for me. How do we go about that with Credible X?
One of the major points when you look at being a burden or being something part of their regular business is depending on the size of the organization and how many years they have operated. Now, we have identified that definitely this is a area where SMEs would get support or need support to manage their cash flows better. And this is where what we enable is we integrate with insurance providers, for example, who are able to understand that this particular requirement of a client. And we would run, CredibleX would do the creditworthiness, do the evaluation in terms of whether this requirement is supported. And if this is supported, we would then break it down into digestible sizes for the SME to repay. Because at the end of the day, a lump sum payout definitely impacts the cash flows much harder than a planned approach where they are able to repay in a certain format periodically. This is where CredibleX is able to support these SMEs, mainly because if you have that solution, people would start using it. When they start using it, they would find that it is beneficial to manage their cash flows and the forecasting of their payments better, and helps them grow faster.
And it goes back to the two things we were mentioning earlier, your partnerships and also getting back to basics, making sure that all the the regulatory side, administrative and managerial side of a business is set up so that then you can focus on something else that you actually want to deliver, whether it's a B2B or a B2C relationship. But the main point is, I think, for both Meydan and also CredibleX, we want to make sure that the basics for you are provided for any kind of client, any type of company that gets registered with us or signs up with CredibleX, so that they can focus on everything else. Don't worry about, freaking out about your financing or not having your insurance or not having your, license. We'll take care of that. And then you just focus on your business plan, focus on scaling, and we'll connect you to partners such as CredibleX that will take you further. But with that, I did want to mention, because you mentioned the partnerships, CredibleX has partnered with a lot of incredible different platforms and different companies. You mentioned some of the insurance companies that they also do. But how do these partnerships, because I know that CredibleX is based in Abu Dhabi, but you work around the entirety of the UAE. How do these partnerships benefit the ecosystem of startups and SMEs you have? Because we have some here in Meydan. Abu Dhabi has their own startups in there. How do you go about assisting? Because all Emirates are different as well. How do you go about assisting the different kind of SME across the UAE?
In terms of our operations, we do have operations in Abu Dhabi and Dubai as well. What we look at is, given that we are not a brick and mortar dependent enterprise, we are more of a more digitally available platform. And through our partnerships, we are able to spread our wings better in terms of reaching out to the wider audience. So when you look at the partnerships that we have been able to build over our operations timeline, we have grown to almost roughly about 40 partnerships presently, and we are growing, and there are more partnerships that are building up. And these partnerships are in different forms and shapes. So you have partnerships operating across UAE, where they hold sizable SME ecosystem within them. Now, when they hold a sizable ecosystem within them, they would want to ensure that those SMEs, for instance, Meydan, would want SMEs operating within Meydan to be able to, as you said rightly, shine where they want to, the operations side, the business side, and not worry about these things. So we take that weight off their shoulders, support them as much as possible. And those partners indirectly become the one-stop solution for the customer. So we are happy to support our partner powered by CredibleX. Mm-hmm. Now that enables a wonderful story for the SME, and also indirectly helps in more top of the mind recall, stickiness within the current service provider.
And there's also a long-term, I think, relationship developed eventually, even if a person might not need financing for the entire time or for a prolonged period of time while their business is running, or maybe even just in a phase of scaling. But there's a good relationship when there's someone that has supported you through the toughest parts, which is always going to be, all companies have different phases throughout their cycle, but the beginning is always the toughest. You have so many things to get in order. You have so many people that you need to trust and rely for support. And you have so many things to think about as well in the future. You're not just thinking about what you need to get done now. You're thinking about where you want to have the company in 5, 10, 15 years. So I think that relationship from an SME to a service provider like CredibleX is really beautiful, because once that trust is there, not only is it positive for you guys because now they'll probably promote you in the long run, but for them, it's always going to be a reminder of where we started. And this is who I started it with.
Sure. You know? I believe people always would like to revisit good memories.
Exactly.
And that's what we're trying to build with the partnership ecosystem here.
Unfortunately, some businesses do have a jumpy lifestyle, or a life cycle. So at the end of the day, they might come back and they might need more support. And at least you know what's going on and that they have a good history and there's a good relationship built from the beginning. But one of the things that, with what you've been saying, I wanted to touch on is the UAE has a real high focus on innovation and development, and it really does prioritize entrepreneurship. It's a land where a lot of people come, they try their ideas, they establish their own companies, they want to see it grow because there's a lot of opportunity. It's highly competitive, but they want to see there's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of. So with this vision of the UAE, where they want to bring more entrepreneurs and more innovation, competitiveness amongst different businesses and SMEs, where does CredibleX fit in there? Because there's a journey that the UAE, like you said, by 2030, they want to do this. We know by almost every decade, the UAE has a certain plan for the whole country to take us to more prosperity. How does CredibleX's journey as a company and as a partner for SMEs, where is that direction going?
Our motto is to be one of the leading business funding providers, not just in UAE, but UAE to the world. So we do want to reach out to a wider audience, but we do know it starts at home and then moves forward. So we're looking forward to reaching those milestones or goals as we progress. But I believe one of the important things that we have been able to showcase is the strength and the idea around embedded finance in UAE, being one of the pioneers to start off, in that logic. Now, what it enables is once the acceptance is proven, then it makes it easier to build more credibility. Yeah, so CredibleX becomes more credible in terms of reaching out to more and more SMEs. Word of mouth definitely helps, because one SME who has gone through the process has seen the seamlessness, has seen the transparency, the convenience. They have their business circles, they have their business interests, and the word spreads. And more businesses would start inquiring. And I would assume pushing their ecosystem providers to partner as well, because that's how the logic works at the end of the day. So we aim at providing these SMEs with certain solutions that probably was not available to them earlier, or were being offered an off-the-shelf product for quite some time. So you look at a customer who's looking for working capital solution because they want their receivable financing to be supported, but sometimes they don't meet the criteria set by traditional banks, for example, right? We don't want to bifurcate that. We want to really go by data sets which would enable us to identify that, yes, this is a customer who has a paymaster X, who's reliable over a period of time. We have seen the history. We have seen that how they're doing it. We would support you. Mm-hmm. And then that support eventually takes them to the next level. And as said, once you start supporting someone, they will remember it. They'll definitely reach out further. And the relationship deepens. And
having said that, I wanted to move on to see what further innovations does CredibleX have in mind? What is in the future for CredibleX, and what can SMEs and also potential Meydan clients look forward to when looking at your company?
I believe from a CredibleX point of view, supporting Meydan clients or partners clients are coming in different forms and shapes. So right now, we do offer working capital solution. We do offer cash flow solutions and growth solutions. We would like to support more of a wider audience, where we could also look at trade-related opportunities. We could look at geography-related opportunities within UAE landscape. As the segments evolve further, there are definitely going to be pockets of interest in terms of solutions required. That's how we would evolve as well.
And as the market evolves, there will always be gaps that people will notice and need to be served to.
I think one of the major edges when you adopt a more digitally driven solution is the fact that it always leaves interfaces open to further evolution. Mm-hmm. And that's already in play when you look at how fast we can build a concept to a product to the market. compared to how it was done in a traditional way of things, which also helps us to navigate through good times and difficult times with certain set of certainty and speed. So it kind of helps a lot when you are aware and close to the ground, close to the market. You feel the beat and see how the different segments are improving, increasing. I think just to get an example from how Maidan is looking at the business model, it's fantastic. I mean, you're adopting to the new requirement of the market. Similarly, CredibleX, when you look at the embedded finance logic, we are taking the services where the customer has to approach us to a situation where it is available to the customers and they have a choice to make.
The exposure that a partnership like ours now brings to both parties is that you can see the different opportunities that exist within the country, and specifically within Dubai. If you go to other countries, there might not be services such as yours, and licensing authorities aren't really a thing in some countries. There's one government entity that manages all, and some places might have certain issues, delays, red tape, some level of mismanagement, whereas here it's very, very reliable. People are screened. It's very understood who we want to work with, especially as Maidan, who we believe and trust in as partners. And from my side, at least, and from Maidan's side, I think we're very excited to work with CredibleX and evolve this partnership, not only to give you guys exposure and for us to, understand this side of the market even better, but for our clients so that they can be exposed to the opportunities, take advantage of things like embedded finance, understand what it is if they'd never heard of it, and reap the benefits long term, no matter what industry or a specific business activity they choose to use.
I believe a lot of the transactions, a lot of work that happens is on trust. Yeah. And embedded finance is a trust between two partners where you are able to openly, transparently, seamlessly, and probably with a lot of convenience, provide what the businesses in your ecosystem are looking for. But unfortunately, they are so good in their own operations, but might be lacking in some of the other financial aspects of things, which is not available to understand very easily. But probably that's where we are able to solve that situation.
In the mind, to someone that might not know what CredibleX does or who CredibleX is, the second that is exposed, they can see whether it's something that will benefit them or they can take advantage of. If that seed isn't sown, then you would never even explore the opportunity. So I'm excited that we can at least explore this venture together and, have our clients benefit from everything that CredibleX offers. But also, I just cannot wait to see where it grows because, like you said, the UAE is becoming a first mover. It's no longer really an adoptive entity across the world. So I'm very excited to see not only what the government decides to do in this industry and how it chooses to take it forward, but also the companies that are leading it. And that I think will be one of CredibleX, if not already is.
Thank you for that. And looking forward to it.
But I did want to get, what is CredibleX's motto or at least its vision in transforming SME financing?
SMEs, in the initial definition, as you mentioned, is the backbone of an economy. It provides a very large percentage of the GDP contribution. It provides a very large percentage of the employment. Unfortunately, based on the balance of the scale and the need for each of the sides looking for funding and the one who can provide funding, that can be bridged to a larger extent with available technology options where you can integrate that, getting the data sets that would help you evaluate better, and ensuring that I believe a lot of these businesses have moved from the traditional cash-based transactions to a more digitally oriented transaction. So there is end-to-end visibility in those transactions. Our aim is to reach out to at least 20,000 plus SMEs by the end of next year.
Oh, that's
It's a very ambitious task. But we know that with the kind of systems that we have, we are able to churn transactions, or we are able to address transactions at a much faster pace. We will be able to build. And with partners and with ecosystems like Maidan and the others that we are partnered with, I don't think it is a task which is very far away.
And also, I mean, with the business landscape that exists within the UAE, I think that's it's a good number to achieve. It doesn't look completely out of the way. We have thousands of SMEs establishing themselves within the UAE every year. I think it's actually within the grasp, considering all the statistics of the country and the prosperity that all the entrepreneurs and SMEs are bringing to the country. To end off, I did want to get your opinion. If you could give our audience things that they should consider when they want to optimize their cash flows, or if they're considering to access financing, what are the 3 tips that you would give them?
In terms of optimizing their cash flows, I believe it's more of their internal controls and operations that they have to be on top of. Many of the SMEs have started using more accounting softwares, ERP softwares, and access platforms that would enable them to track and understand where they're doing business with and what are the credit terms and how much is outstanding. It's equally important to be on top of that, because that's where your first cash flow issue can be resolved, where you would be able to tap into a supplier payment equation where you could enhance the credit terms or get better deals from it because you have been doing consistent business with them over a long term. Or on the other end, from a client side, where you can extract earlier payments for a service done because you have a long-time relationship. That is definitely helpful. And identifying, so for enterprises that, for example, hold stock, it's good to evaluate from time to time what kind of stocks, what kind of fast movers, what kind of refilling or what kind of reduction in purchases can be done, which can be only read through data points if they are storing it. So that definitely helps out. And there are a lot more free softwares in the market that can help you to start off. And eventually when you grow, you can look at better customizable solutions on that. In terms of accessing funding, which would help them on that side, I believe one of the main things that CredibleX would help, we do provide credit that goes back to the credit bureau. So it's like taking an example of taking a fish and releasing it in the upstream so that they get a wider audience. The credit bureau is like a thumb rule when it comes to many institutions looking to provide credit further, because that gives a track record of the credit history. So having a credit history definitely adds on. Keeping it clean, keeping it timely would increase your credit worthiness with the applicant institution, be it CredibleX or any other institution. So that helps. Ensuring that your books are in order. With VAT and corporate tax coming into play, it's becoming more and more from a good to have to a mandatory requirement. So it's good to have that in place, because those information which flows back into an assessment engine would add to the ease or difficulty of raising funds. And I believe one of the important things is there are a lot of initiatives which are happening, both not just from a digital or digitally enabled services point of view, like your embedded finance or fintechs, but there are also public-private partnerships which are supporting SMEs and helping them to raise funds. And I believe sometimes it's good, as you said, if it's in the mind or if you have heard about it, you explore more. So I believe this is where there are different forums, different access points where SMEs can get in touch, reach out, and explore if they are at that stage to raise funds, which would serve their purpose.
Well, Suraj, it was so lovely to have you here today. I'm very excited for this partnership. It's a service that a lot of our clients can reap many benefits from. I'm very excited that they get the exposure to see it and explore the services that CredibleX provides. And I cannot wait to see where you take the business as well. So thank you so much for coming and taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you so much for inviting, Maria. The pleasure was all mine. And it was wonderful talking to you and exploring the different angles for SMEs and how our partnership could also benefit. So looking forward to future podcasts from Maidan as well. Thank you.
To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us today on the Maidan Free Zone podcast. I hope you enjoyed the invaluable insights that Suraj gave us today with respect to CredibleX and its incredible journey pioneering the SME financing world. Please join us next time and stay connected for more stories about Dubai's vibrant business community.